Welcome to episode 6 of In the Studio. Thank you guys so much, first of all, for all of your support across the series so far. I know that we've had a lot of fun making it and hearing from different collaborators, and we're glad that you guys are finding it useful as well. So please keep sharing it and getting involved via our Twitter, which we'll leave linked down below. This week we're discussing feedback, which I know is one of the worst things as a writer, because personally for me the last thing I want to do after I finish writing is pass my script off to somebody else to completely tear apart. But I think the most important thing about getting feedback is changing your point of view on it. So for me, I think before you even start writing the script, you need to think about who your audience is. So I think for me, like whenever I'm writing, I always think like, who am I making this film for? Who do I want it to reach? Who do I want it to resonate with? And then that really helps me by the time I get to feedback to then pass the script on to people who I think it's going to impact. So if there's like a particular group of people, like if it's aimed for 16 to 25 year olds, or if it's a different like target audience, I always try and get my script in the hands of whoever I'm making the film for. And I think that that's a very common thing with feedback, is that when you get notes on a script that you love so much, the last thing you want to do is kind of pass it on to somebody who it's not necessarily their genre, or it's not necessarily the thing that they go see at the cinema. And I think just streamlining the feedback that you get will ultimately help you to create like a more cultivated set of notes.
Hello everyone, thanks to JumpCut Studios for having me on to talk about my experiences in giving and receiving feedback. My name is Jacob Holmes Brown and I'm a screenwriter originally from Australia, now living here in UK. By way of background, I have a master's in screenwriting from the Australian Film, Television and Radio School. I have a couple of features and TV series in development, and I've worked as an independent script editor for the last 5 years alongside my writing work. So for me, the best kind of feedback seeks to elevate a writer's vision and help them see their blind spots. When I'm approaching giving feedback, I like to start from a position of assuming the best of the writer and the script. I find that it's all too easy to critique when you've got no skin in the game, but as a writer on the receiving end of that, the feedback will be better understood if it feels like a writer is alongside you. On finishing my first read through, I like to write out a summary of the events of the film and where the main character's turning points are. My main focus here is to find the spine of the film. To do this, I start with the protagonist's arc and then try and corral a working theme for the script. So this would be something like, who do you invent yourself as when nobody knows your past? Which would be the working theme for the TV series Lost. In feedback, I'll often refer back to both the character arc and this thematic spine when discussing issues that are arising in the script, trying to cohere things to the writer's vision. But in expressing that to the writer, I try and use phrases that show that this is my interpretation of their work. I'll say, it appears like, or the character's actions here speaks to the idea that, etc. And that just allows the writer to better discern whether a note is helpful, because then they know your point of interpretation. In giving feedback, I always start with the macro. So it's looking at the protagonist, so protagonist or the character's arc, and their character relationships in the script. The theme, delivery of genre and genre expectations, or subversion of that. So if it's a romance film, it's a romance. And the structure. Are the turning points providing enough momentum? Do we feel that the midpoint is enough of a change in the character's journey? Do we feel there's enough of a build to the climax? That kind of thing. These larger points often lead to talking about scene-specific examples, but it helps provide a roadmap so you don't get caught up in the little details. I find it's rarely helpful for a writer to point out their grammar and spelling mistakes. Be positive when reading someone else's work. I've read scripts that were a struggle to get through and others that were essentially production ready. No writer is on the same journey as you, and we all have our own specialities within this craft. Your job is to help the writer carve out the film that they're trying to write and to mirror their strengths and creative choices and help reveal the areas that need more focus in their work. And lastly, as a reader, I think it's really important to bear in mind that you might not have had the same life experiences as the writer you're reading. You don't know what you don't know, and so it can be helpful to approach material with more curiosity than having expectation that it cohere to your experience. So instead of telling a writer that something doesn't strike you as realistic, it's more helpful to flag questions that you might have. Conversely, if you have life experiences and you see a writer struggling to portray something authentically, I think you're well within your rights to offer your experiences or guidance there. On the other side of this fence, what do you do when you've received written feedback? So firstly, always thank the person for their time. That's just basic etiquette. whether that person's delivered adequate feedback or not. They've taken the time out of their day to read your work. On reading feedback, I like to manually jot down the notes that are speaking to me and highlighting the areas that I want to focus on. You can't tackle everything at once, so usually I just pick a couple of areas to hone in on. More often than not, those notes are also providing me with a perspective I hadn't considered, and they spark their own mini brainstorming sessions that offer up different creative solutions. When I'm ready, I'll transfer those new ideas to a new version of my beat sheet or outline. I like to know where I'm fitting an idea and the place it has in the overall picture, and it also means I don't lose that idea or struggle to remember it later. It's a big step forward to send out your work into the world, but in doing so it can be immensely rewarding and a huge learning experience as we see how our work then stands on its own and in other people's imaginations.
So I think something that's really important to consider when you're looking for feedback on one of your scripts is who that you actually send that script to and get feedback from. Obviously it's really, really nice to send it to people that you know very well and who know the story inside out, and that might often give you really good feedback and say, this script is brilliant, I love it, love reading it, well done, keep it up. It's great to get that kind of feedback, obviously, but the problem with that is that those people are probably have some kind of vested interest in the script or yourself as a writer. And I don't mean that from a selfish point of view, I just mean they're your friends, they're your family, they're your closest collaborators. They want you to hear positive things, obviously, and it's not even a conscious decision to do those things, it's just a natural bias, I guess. The best thing that I've always found is, and what I always strive to do, is send my scripts to at least one person who doesn't know anything about it prior to reading. They don't know the story, they've never read the script before, they might not even know anything about the project at all. And if you can find those kinds of people, which, to be honest, looking from my own experiences on Twitter and various avenues like that, there's a lot of people out there that want to read scripts. They will always be happy to read scripts. I guarantee if you put a tweet out saying, would someone read my script and give me some feedback, lots of people will come back and say, yes, absolutely, email that to me. So do put yourself out there, do try that, and try and find new people to read your scripts every time. That being said, I think it is important to have a close network of people who will know the story as well, and can probably hone in on even just one little element that would be helpful. Hopefully you've got people around you that will be really honest and brutally honest. I know that I am with the group of people that I kind of write and discuss stories with. I always try and give as honest feedback as I can, and I expect the same back from them as well. So it's a bit of both, really, I guess, is the balance that you need to strike. I think you need fresh eyes on a script who will be able to, really dig deep into the overall kind of form and structure of your screenplay. And you also need people who know the story inside out, who can see where it's come from, know where it's heading, and kind of realise the little parts that you might be missing. When it comes to more professional advice and paid advice, I guess, I do recommend definitely using a script consultant, script feedback service. What I would recommend is don't send a script to a service like this unless you've exhausted all their options of feedback from people that you know, people you don't know, and your own notes as well. There is no point sending a script to a feedback service and paying money for that if it's going to come back with advice that people around you could have given anyway. What I would recommend is waiting until you've done quite a few drafts and you do feel like you've done pretty much everything you can do, then go for the paid feedback service. Obviously this isn't an option for everyone, but as much as possible I do really recommend it. You will find that these people are paid to do this. It's their expertise, their experience is incredible, and they will guaranteed unlock something in your script that you never could have thought of. So it's important to look for the right people to provide this service, but they are out there. I gave him a shout last week, but I'll give him a shout again. FilmScribe on Twitter is my go-to for advice on scripts, and he is extremely thorough. I think the last time I submitted something to Phil. I got I think 50 pages of feedback, which is just insane, but really, really helpful. And it does genuinely make the rewriting process more enjoyable when you've got solid notes and something to work towards. So yeah, hopefully that helps. I wanted to just kind of pick on one thing when it comes to feedback this week, and that is who to send it to. And the answer is, people who are close to you. Definitely search for new people who've never read it and make those connections as well. And then ultimately in the latter stages of your writing process, seek out a really good script consultant as well.
I think that there's a lot of value in other people's opinions when it comes to your writing. I think that not being precious about your words, I think definitely keep the writing to yourself. If you feel like you're not ready to pass it on, maybe keep it for yourself for a couple of weeks or like a month, just leave it aside. And then I always think reread the work before you pass it on, just to make sure that you're fine-tuning any notes that you're likely to get. And then when you're ready, release it off to people. And when they come back to you, just make sure you take everything with like a grain of salt, and just focus in on what you find valuable and then pick and choose.
Hi there, my name's Claire Taylor. I'm writer of Farewell She Goes, which is a short film being shot this year with a feature in the pipeline with Backscatter Productions. I also wrote Mother Wild, which is a feature script selected for BAFTA Rockcliffe this year and is currently a quarter finalist at the Academy's Nickel script writing competition. Thank you JumpCut for inviting me to talk a little bit about feedback. How do you know when your script is ready for feedback? So what I would say with this is make sure that you've tackled everything that you want to in that script before you send it out. You've done all the notes that you want, you've got it in a shape that you're happy with, because otherwise what will happen is people send back notes that you were going to tackle anyway and it's pointless. What I would say is make sure that you're very selective with who you send it out to as well. Send it out in different stages. So if you've got a third draft, only send it out to a handful of people. And then once you've tackled those notes, then use new people for the next draft to send it out. Otherwise you'll have to send it out to the same people and they won't be able to read multiple drafts. Also, the old phrase of too many cooks spoil the broth is very true with script writing. Be selective about who you send it out to in terms of A, who you trust, B, if they've made or like films very similar to the script that you're sending out and they get that genre or they get those types of characters. Because otherwise people are going to try and turn it into a script that they would watch and it is nothing to do with what you've written. And also be very careful about people's time. It takes a lot of time to read someone's script and give notes, so really when you're sending it out, try not to make demands on people, but just ask if it would be possible. And also what might be helpful is to set a soft deadline so that you're not asking people to suddenly read it in a week and give notes back. You've given them a couple of months to get to it, and you're polite about reminding them if they don't get back to you. But if they don't get back to you, after one nudge, let that be, because people are busy and you want to be that person that they want to come back to later on. You don't want to be the person who they remember nagging them for notes that they didn't have time for. With this, I think it's a gut instinct thing. Only you know your script and what you're trying to say. So if a note doesn't resonate with you, don't use it. If it resonates with you, use it. But don't get caught up on people's specific suggestions on how to fix something. Find the essence of that note, find what the problem is, and then you come up with a solution, because otherwise, again, you'll have someone else writing your script when it's really got to come from you. You know your message, you know those characters. Another thing to look out for is if a note comes back over and over again. So one, you dismissed it because it wasn't something that resonated with you, but it's a note that keeps coming back multiple times from multiple different people. Then you've got to listen to it really, because there's something there that's a problem, and the audience, once you get into production, you don't want to be sitting in the edit room fixing something that you could have fixed in the script. Always try and dig deeper with the person who gave the note about what it exactly is, what the essence is of why they have that problem, so that you really can understand how to fix it. And also take notes of the I don't understands. Even if someone's not got a suggestion of how to fix it, ask them if something just didn't make sense to them, you know, so that they're not embarrassed to say it. If something isn't making sense to them, it's probably not because they've just missed it, it's because there's something in the writing that you need to solve. At the end of the day, you need your message to be clear. So how you tell that script is completely up to you. You know, take notes with a pinch of salt, but also take advantage of the fact that, you know, you've got these people's time, they've read your script, they have given you certain notes that either do or don't make sense to you, but probe them a little bit, go back to them and say thank you, obviously, and what those notes, how those notes mean to you, and once you've solved it, just go back and let them know, you know, that you're really grateful for all the feedback, and actually it solved a huge problem that you didn't see before because you were so close to the work. So enjoy writing, and can't wait to see your scripts come to life.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found the information useful. I know I definitely did. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends. And if there's any other screenwriters out there, please get in contact with us via social media, and we'd love to talk to you and form a little community. And yeah, we look forward to speaking with you again next week.